All right. So thank you both for being here for the student side of should you take comedy classes.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Would you each be so kind as to introduce yourself as comics first, and then we'll get around to the class stuff after that?
Okay. I'm Jessica Levin. I live in NYC, Queens specifically. And yeah, I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm not like full pro yet because I still need a day job to pay the rent, but I'm getting there. Knock on wood. And yeah, I think is that enough?
Aces. Earl?
uh, Earl Skakel here, comic of 7,000 years, and I guess Comedy Store paid regular, and that's about it. I can tell Jessica's going to make it. She's funny.
Thanks.
You're not
Don't
wrong.
I
even,
can
dude.
tell.
Yeah,
I've known you for 4 minutes, and I like you.
Oh,
she's
thanks,
ludicrously
bud.
funny.
Oh, thank you.
Um, but yeah, all right. So I'm going to start with you, Jess, because I know you've had at least one good experience. And so let's
Yeah,
start on a positive note.
yeah.
But can you talk? I know you've taken at least one stand-up class. You mentioned
Mhm.
storytelling and improv as well. Um, I'm interested definitely in the storytelling. I feel like it's stand-up adjacent enough. I think we
Hmm.
can, really bring that in. And then maybe not so much, the improv classes, except to compare
Right.
your
Yeah, that's what
experiences,
I,
since this is
yeah.
mostly for stand-ups. But yeah, tell me about your sojourn through classes.
Um, so, well, I was gonna say the reason why I was gonna like improv, like, but the reason why I bring it up is because I've kept on trying to force myself to be like, this should work for me because my background's theater. I was a
Mm.
theater nerd for a while. So I was like, all right. And I never thought of me doing stand up for some reason. Like, I don't know why. Like, I had friends who would be like, you should do that. And I'm just like, yeah, I never thought. So I was just like, well, I got to do improv. This is the way I have to get into it, not understanding. And I fucking hated it so much. I'm like, you cornballs, dude, shut up. It's like, so, and I kept on trying to make it work. And then finally, when I went and did storytelling in LA, I was in LA and I went to a storytelling festival. It was at IO. And I went there and I was like, this is fun. I like this because it's free form. It's a little like, you can get serious, you can do comedy. I felt like the stakes were not as like, oh man, you gotta like, you know, be funny or anything. And I like the fact that I could be by myself because I don't like being like, yeah, yes, yeah, I'm gonna boat this. Shut up. It's just like I couldn't stand doing that, you know? And I'm a control freak, and it's like I want to drive this car. So it's like I like doing. So after I did that, and the storytelling was fun, it was liberating, and I did a very dark story about a friend of mine's fiance that died, and but I was able to do comedy in it, and I was like, oh man, all right, and then that inched me closer to um being like, oh man, I want to do stand up. Plus, I bombed at the comedy store doing a mic and all that stuff. And I was like, all right. So yeah, that was that. And then with the comedy class, this was finally I mean, I took it like 4 years in to comedy. So hardcore. Like I went on and off with comedy because whatever. But I'm doing it hardcore nonstop for 4.5 years. So by the time I took the class, also I'm older, dude. So it's like I know how to articulate what I want better now. And I know and at this point it's good that I did it not so early because I knew kind of myself, what I was getting out of it. I think some people take classes and they think like it's going to be a teacher situation where they're like, I will tell you this and I will make
Yeah.
you feel like, yeah, you're ready. You go do it. And then it's like, oh, okay, you told me that. So that it's like, no, 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 we're all adults here, or pretending to be or attempting to be. I don't know. But it's like, so for me, it was just a perfect, the timing was right,
Yeah.
you know?
And then conversely, Earl, I know you had a horrific time in a comedy class. Would you care to share that disaster?
Well, I'll start with a good class I took, and it wasn't stand up. It was I do a lot of voiceover work, and there's this guy by the name of Charlie Adler, and any cartoon you've watched, any animated movie you've watched, he's been in it. So uh, I felt comfortable taking that and learning because he's done everything you can do in animation 100 times over.
Word.
Uh, so not that I'm anti-class, I don't want you to think that, but I am when it comes to Barbara and Steve North, who are literally in my 22 years of comedy the two most unfunny people I've ever met. And they're going to tell me how to be, or anyone, how to be funny when they aren't funny. That's, they had it where you go over to their house and Steve is dressed like every male character in Gilligan's Island. He's got that Hawaiian shirt, the sailor's cap. His wife is, for lack of a better word, a yes woman. Oh, yes, Steve, that's funny. And I just hate seeing young kids, in some cases older comics, getting ripped off by people like that. It really bothers me. And I have this thing in my head. I'll take advice from someone who's higher up the food chain than me, which is a lot of people. If like Jimmy Carr once gave me advice on how to do a joke, and I'd never been so surprised. He was watching me perform, and Jimmy, he's got this like Darth Vader like energy. Like I didn't even know he was. I didn't know he was in the room. I felt him, and I look over, and he's just staring at me. And he was like, "Hey, that joke you did, try it this way because I think it would lead to this." And I did it his way the next time, and it killed.
Oh, sweet.
So I just people in LA should get into comedy, and I don't know why everyone comes to stand up for like their salvation, like Jeremy Piven. Hey, I got Me Too'd out of Hollywood. I'll do stand up. Hey, I'm Brendan Schaub. I've been knocked out in my last 3 fights. I think I'll do stand up. So I think the opportunity to rip off people is much more prevalent out here.
Yeah, so that was the thing Earl and I were discussing, but I also have talked about with other people a lot, which is I do think I've experienced more legitimate classes in New York or exposure to them than LA. And I don't know if that's a difference too of like where I was at in LA and where I'm at here, but I do feel like LA is just rife with shysters.
My short time there, yeah. But Earl, you
oh
know
yeah,
more.
I mean,
Yeah, Earl, go ahead.
I think it's really the reason why I just said there's so many more eager people coming here to not just act, but to make it in acting or even musicians. And, eventually you have to come to LA to quote unquote make it, whatever that means. Most everything's filmed. Most comedy auditions are here. They know that you're probably not doing well financially if you move out.
Oh shit, Earl, I think we're
There's
losing you a little bit.
there's more desperation out here. So I think there's more desperation out here.
Yeah. Jess, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say like I was only there, like I'll be real with you. When I landed, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be out of here in 9 months. And I did. And it just wasn't my vibe. But like also I could tell like like we've got people in New York that of course that want fame, but it's like in New York, I mean in LA, I could really feel it's like, oh, I want to be famous. It's not like a lot of people, not like all people, but it's like they just want fame in whatever way possible. So I got that energy there. And when I went to I think I went to the store and I went to the Laugh Factory to check stuff out. And every one of them were like, well, I'm an actor, but my agent said I should try this out.
Oh my God, I know. I used to run an
I'm like,
open mic
agents need
in
to
LA.
shut the fuck up. Yeah.
I know. I know. I used to run an open mic in LA, and when new people would show up, because I'm a very welcoming lady, I would be like, "Oh, hello, welcome. What do how'd you find us?" Da, 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 da. And every week there'd be at least 2 people that were like, "Oh, my manager told me I have to do stand up now for my resume,"
Right.
and I'm like, why are you wasting everybody else's time here?"
Right. Go do improv.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, I think in New York, though, it's very real in New York. So someone like a Steve North, and it's not personal. I don't have a beef against the 2 people would be like, "Who the fuck are you?" Where in LA, it's, "Oh, yeah, I'll take your advice. Here's my $500.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 Well, so I think, Earl, you kind of touched on this a little. It sort of, but like, there's this other idea of you can't teach someone how to be funny, which I agree with, and I think is a fundamental, like you can't teach someone how to become a comedian or I'm not quite phrasing this right because there's sort of two different things when it comes to a class, right? But uh I don't God, there's a question in here somewhere. I don't know how I'm gonna get to
Yeah.
it. But like do you find so in the class that you took, Jess, like did you find it was obviously it was a little bit more advanced. It was for your 4 years in. Um like was it people trying to be like this is how to be funny, or did it have kind of a different structure to it?
No, it had a different structure, and I'm brain dead. I also took a class when I first started out before 4 years with Kevin Dabrowski, who I lucked out with all of my classes because I had good people, and that's the key, of course. It's the good people, and I sought after that. If I think I took the class not with Kevin Dabrowski, but with another person that's there that I won't mention his name, I think that would have been more shisty. But I love Kevin, and he
Mhm.
was the first person that like believed in me in a real positive way
Yeah.
and pushed me along. So without him, I just want to make sure I preface that. But with the one I did with the most recent one, it wasn't no. At that point, it was like even where I loved how Candy opened it, it was like, oh, you guys at this point know your voice. And it's more like not here to make you funny. Like you're not, technically you're not even supposed to be there if you're not funny. Like what the hell are we doing here? It was more about I don't know if that was what she wanted, but for me, what I loved about it was just like the sense of like I could see where I was. It was a good like helicopter view of like, oh, this is where I'm at. Because every day we had to do our stuff and
Mhm.
not the same stuff. So I was able to take inventory of what the hell I have because I'm much more of a person on the ground. I hit it running. I'm never. It gave me an aerial view of what it
Mhm.
was. So it wasn't like, oh, we're trying to like. No, I mean, I wouldn't want to have that. Why would I, No way. That's again, that's improv 101. You know what I mean? That's not where we're at, there. So then everyone else kind of on the same level, if you will,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Well, from both of your experiences, positive and negative, with a more beginner class, like, what do you think are things if someone is coming to a comedy class who's very new to comedy, let's say less than a year and maybe brand new, like, are there things a class can be useful for? Like, were there things you learned or wish you learned that, would have been actually helpful?
I mean,
Yeah, you go ahead. No, go ahead, Earl. Go ahead, bud.
I think you mentioned it before. Like you can't teach funny, so I would have to be honest with you.
Oh
No
shit.
vertical. So you teach me all the dunk a bass useless because I can't jump. So I don't think you can teach technique, but if you're not funny, the technique is useless. So I really would ask any newer comic, and I don't think many are going to take this advice. Am I funny enough to do this? Like I knew I was always funny just through people telling me that. So I had I mean, delusion comics. I don't like to be the one to say, hey, you shouldn't do this, but they should get that advice from their friends. So,
Mhm.
uh, and it's just that most teachers haven't achieved anything. So how are they going to teach you how to achieve it? Like,
Yeah.
um, I don't know. For me, I think the key of being a student in anything is being open and knowing what questions you want answered. You know, I think for me, where I sucked at going into it is my comedy education of knowing what is out there. Because I was still stuck when I first took with Kevin. I was like, "Oh, what's your favorite comedy?" I was like, it was Patrice O'Neill and like You know what I mean? But I didn't know what was happening in the scene of in New York that well. I knew some names, of course, but not like the deep. And because I never was really a comedy geek per se, I liked who I liked. So I wish, and I'm a like a person who's very likes to peel the layer of the onion with every form of art. So I feel like I lacked in knowing, you know, colleagues that are out there that like looking at the seller lineup and be like, oh, who's that? You know, knowing like late night sets and watching those. I never really did that kind of stuff. I had my guys that I loved and gals, and that's all I watched.
Mhm.
But I think I wish I knew more of that before going into a class.
Yeah. Was that something you learned from the class, or was that something you learned separately and,
From the beginning, yeah, with Kevin Dabrowski, I
yeah.
heard that because Kevin the first day was like, "Name your 3 comics," which I liked a lot because then he could see, "Oh, okay."
Mhm.
He could see where you're at educationally, comedically. He could
Yeah.
see where
Ooh.
your like what your tastes are, and therefore what you're gravitating towards. You know,
Yeah.
and for that, I felt like a nerd because when I left that class, I was like, "Oh man, I like this person. I forgot I like this person a lot," and I never, you know. So I wish
Yeah.
I had more of a base of an understanding and education in that regard before I took the class.
Mhm.
But I think
That makes
another problem with classes is they teach comedy in an environment you'll never see in the real world of comedy.
No,
You know,
yeah,
That's true.
yeah, true that. And that's the reason why I think I did it first. And also I did it because I liked having deadlines. It forced my ass to go every week. And that was one of the main reasons why I did it, because I need to be like pushed sometimes to keep going.
Yeah. And
yeah,
another interesting thing, and some people, Earl and I know have said this, who have gone on to great things, that for some people too, it's the deadlines, but it's also like some people are like, I just actually wanted to be in that environment to learn
Mm,
how to take the microphone out of the stage without dropping it with no
mm,
pressure. So, I mean,
yeah,
I don't know how much you want to pay for learning that
right,
with safety wheels on, but
I
right.
mean, you could come over to my house for free, and I would tell you how to take the mic out of the stand.
I mean, but Earl, that sounds creepy.
Listen,
Hey,
I'm one of
baby,
the
come
few
over
The
to my
comics.
house
mic.
and take your mic out.
I'm one of the comics who hasn't been canceled out here. I'm good.
That's funny.
Um, all right. Well, so conversely of that, like, I mean, we sort of talked about this a little bit in it, but like, what would you say if let's say you've decided I want to take a comedy class for whatever reason because you
Hmm.
like the structure, you need that kick in the ass. Also, some people are like, because I spent $200, it forced me to do comedy.
Hmm.
It was like those things where you bet on losing weight or whatever.
Hmm.
So let's say you've decided I'm definitely taking comedy class. When you're looking around and trying to choose one, like what's a big red flag to don't take this class?
Um, I'm this sounds stupid, but like I guess for me, it's like I could tell like the person. I research the person who's giving the class. You know what I mean? I do that. If I don't find them funny, then I'm not gonna take the goddamn class. Like, what am I? You know what I mean? Or if they're not like working, or you know what I mean? I look at the person. That's what I more or less because it's like it's their perspective that they're teaching me, and also I want to see where they're at career wise and who they've worked with and how long they're doing it. So it's the person who's giving it for me. I research that before I delve in.
I'm the same way. I look at their credits and I also look at their description of the class, like how to handle hecklers will be taught. You can't teach that. It's just
Mm,
you can't. And
Yeah.
like it's a lot of that is also prevalent in the acting classes out here, where someone's teaching you how to make it in acting. It's like, well, you were in a Mentos commercial 20 years ago. That's it.
hmm.
I
Hmm.
don't
Yeah.
think you can. So I mean, you really do have to research the people, and it's hard to research comedy credits because they're so you can stretch the truth a lot
Yeah.
Yeah.
in someone's bio.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I look at the aesthetic of like the picture they're choosing, like how's the
Yeah,
web page correct? You know what I mean? Like the whole like the look.
Does it look professional or is this,
Yeah, like are you a clown? Like you know what I mean?
a
Yeah, like
janky? Yeah.
right. Your
Yeah.
website's freaking ridiculous. I go by like kind of that, the vibe of that too.
So I think too,
I mean anyone
interestingly,
who's, but I mean anyone who's a good comic, they don't have the time to teach. like they're busy working. Robert De Niro doesn't have time to teach an acting class
Right.
because he's busy acting. So I just think it's such a scam to. I learned the best way is just by getting up at open mics and doing it. And yeah, there was a lot of bad nights, but you navigate your way around it. And I think you're your own best teacher.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's also some comics and teachers out there, if you will, that, I not to sound corny, but there's some good people out there that just want to give back in a way. That's what I find Kevin as, like, you know what I mean? So I was very lucky to bump into him. So I don't think it's all like, I get what you're saying. If they're really like, I don't expect like, Chris Rock to teach a class, of course not. But I think there's some people that are like trying to make ends meet and making money to do it, and their heart's in the right place. And there's some gems out there, and you just luckily enough find them. And you, by doing it by the red flags, by looking at their website, seeing who they are, maybe finding out who they worked with, talk to other people that if you're in an open mic situation, and figuring that out,
I think that's huge too.
Oh,
If you can
yeah.
find someone else who took the class
Right.
and
So
find
yeah.
out, did you get anything out of it, or was
Yeah.
it a waste of your time?
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
I don't mean to say everyone out there is a scammer or a
No, I hear
hustler,
you.
No, I know.
but
Well,
you know, well in LA that might be
yeah,
true, but like I do think that it's just there's so many people who are vultures
Yeah.
that and they can see a new comic. I see it out here almost on a weekly basis. New comics just have tells. Like there was a girl the other night at the Comedy Store. You could tell she was maybe a month into comedy because she's going up to every comic. Hi, do you do stand up? And like, I'm new in town. And like a comedy teacher would eat her alive. Oh,
oh
take my
yeah.
class.
Yeah, but not to be a bitch. So what? You know what I mean? Yeah, but like, you know what I mean? Like, if sometimes getting suckered is the way you learn. You need a kick in the ass. That's how it's gonna have to happen. Like I'm very much self-aware. I've always had, and maybe that's because I've worked in film and TV production for years. It's like I know who to talk to and not who to talk to.
Mhm.
And sometimes you going through it, and of course within limitations. I'm not saying,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But like, you have to figure it out. And going up to cons, be like, "Hi, my name is that." It's like, what?
And it could be a guy too. I see
Yeah,
plenty of
dude. Yeah.
male comics.
Oh
Right.
God, I almost feel like at the store, at least while I was there, the male comics were way worse about that. They were like, there would be the people. I remember not even a comic, Pete Carnaccione. Like at one point, there was this very eager young kid, and Pete had like a real heart to heart with him of like, you are bothering all of the comics. You need to stop just entering conversations you're not inviting into and asking stupid questions that aren't to do with the topic of whatever. And it was funny because the guy goes like, yeah, yeah, and not 30 minutes later, he circled around and joined a conversation that
Oh,
Willie, Pete, and I were having. And Pete goes, you didn't listen to a word I said. And I mean, that guy got pushed out like a splinter, as they
right.
do.
Yeah. I think that's like a natural thing though. Like that's what I like about comedy. I think there's like a little Darwinism involved in it.
Yeah.
It's like, that or they find their group and they go with their group, It's like, all right, Britney Spears fans, you're over here,
Yeah. Exactly.
and leave us, people with taste.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I
Yeah.
do think there's something kind of what you said, and going into all of it, there is a sort of picking a lane. There's like a
Yeah.
self-selection to it. I guess kind of a Darwinism actually is the right way to
Yeah.
put it. And it is like, okay, it's not cool that this, economy of taking advantage and being a predator exists,
Yeah.
but a percentage of those people are never going to really do comedy anyway. And maybe this was how they figured it out.
Yeah, and it's also probably because my father's from the Bronx, and we had a very like, we'll throw your ass in the deep pool, and it's like if you're a sucker, then you're gonna get suckered. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Which is a horrible, I guess, way,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean?
uh, so Earl already basically said, kind of the thing I tend to agree with, which is, you learn by doing. You learn by going to
Yeah.
open mics and eating your dick, and then you meet people and you find your
Mhm.
group. I guess, what would you say? I'm trying to think of like, what would you say to someone to basically tell them like, you don't need a class, like this is how to do it, and just stick with it, and don't worry about XYZ? Or did we already all just say it.
Sorry, Earl, you go ahead.
I mean, what's the question, Amy? What would
I
I
know,
tell
sorry, that
someone?
was basically like how would you explain to a someone starting out who's like that girl who's a month in of like, don't take a class. Here's why you don't need to take a class. Do this instead.
Well, because I think, what I would tell that girl from the other night, I would say, don't start comedy at the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
Right.
Or in New York, the Cellar or the
Yeah.
Stand. Because I did that. I started at the Comedy Store and I wasn't ready, so I disappeared for 10 years to do shitty open mics, bars, and places like that. Patio gigs with Whitney Cummings at the Sportsman's Lodge. So, because I think what made me the comic I am today is all those bars, all those coffee shops where you're doing jokes and the espresso machines running, they toughen you up. I don't think any comic, female or male, or any trans, want to include everyone.
Any gender.
There you go.
Yes,
Word.
any gender fluid person should start at a comedy club, which kind of seems like bad advice, but especially at the bigger clubs, you get one or two shots to make a first impression. And I saw Brody Stevens make a kid cry one night hosting Potluck because he bombed, and he probably shouldn't have been ready to do comedy at the store. And I'd never seen the kid since. Where it's funny to me now because I know Brody, but looking back, the kid wanted to play at the Comedy Store, and he bombed in front of a lot of established comics like Brody and other people. And if you bomb in a bar show, nobody cares.
Yeah.
It's just a tick in your book of, okay, this week I had 4 good shows and 2 bad shows, or 5 and 1, or whatever it is.
Yeah, you can't have, like, when you're starting out, 2-3 bad shows at the Comedy Store, you won't be asked back, or the Cellar or wherever.
Yeah, I mean, Earl, you're much, you're a established and longer comic, but I appreciate, I agree with that too. Like, I don't understand sometimes, like, now that I'm getting into clubs and becoming more in that atmosphere, I sometimes do see like noobs that I can tell they're noobs and they're hanging out, and it's like, I mean, I don't want it to, like, if you're here to watch, like, sometimes when I was new, like, when I wasn't ready, I'd go watch. Like, I'd go to the Stand because I could see Norman and Joe List on the same bill, because that's an easier place to go watch good professional comics. But I wasn't hanging in the hopes of, like, oh, maybe they'll see me and we'll, like, make a connection. You know what I mean? It's dumb. It's like, just, it's just a stupid, naive shit to have. And also, not to sound ridiculous, but you're not appreciating the art form if you're not trying to figure out how to be funny. Like, go be fucking funny. That's the number one thing. Go be fucking funny. Figure out what it is. Go eat your dick. I used to hate too as a woman, and I don't know, I might get people pissed off, but I used to hate when I used to go into mics and I see another chick was there, and a chick would run up to me and be like, "Thank God there's another woman here." And I'm like, "Why?" I'm like, "I want to be just as good as these jabrones." So it's like, I'd rather, and it's a numbers game. What people have to understand that there's a lot of dudes that do comedy. It's just a lot. I think the ratio is a lot more men than there are chicks. Not like I've done research, but I'm assuming, right? Aim, you've been around.
Yeah,
Earl,
I've done the
right?
research. It is
right, and Earl too, right? You would agree with that too?
Yeah.
Okay,
so
I mean,
I would say it's 75-25.
75-25, right? So for me, when I go into a room and I see, like, mostly dudes or something, I'm like, great. These are maybe the people that I'm, I don't know who's gonna keep on going, but I'd rather try to, be the best of the best with the best of the best, and that could be man, woman, or whatever the fuck, but not because I want to do a safe room, because it's not, you don't want to have bumper cars. I want to be good. When you get to the point where you're at the Cellar or even New York Comedy Club, you're surrounded by fucking, Bill Burr might stop by and all that stuff, and it's like, I'm not saying I'm going to be them, but you want to keep on pushing. You're only as good. You want to play with Jordan, that's what makes you better. You want to keep on going, and to do that, you have to keep on doing the mics, and you start, and also people don't understand it too. When you're doing the mics, the people that you're doing comedy with, they might hire you. They might become a writer on a show. So you're building relationships with people that are in your class, if you will. So it's like you got to understand you going to the mics is you building like my two greatest friends in my life right now are I met people when I first started doing mics and we're moving up together. And that's the part of the journey that's beautiful too, you know?
Yeah. And I used to always say that during the dark times of the store of like people like, well, no industry goes there. What's the point? I was like, the point is you don't know yet who is going to be the one running a show on
Right,
Comedy Central in five
right,
years, but they're going to need writers and they'll know you.
right. And the part of the
Oh
business
yeah, I
too.
mean,
Yeah, yeah, sorry.
oh no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say too, just because of working film televisions for so long, you're with people for long days, you know? Like you're in a writer's room for long days, you're doing work long days, productions long days. You want to be around people that you know and like to be around because you're spending three-fourths of your life with them.
Yeah.
So you're building relationships with people that are like you're growing with, and like I say, they might get a development deal and they're like, oh, I love my buddy and I trust him. It's all about trust too, because there's a lot of snakes in that fuck. I can do a whole lot pod on film and TV, trust me. So it's just that world. So it's just like don't skip this beautiful journey of just going to hang out at New York, like at the clubs that you want to, yet. You're skipping out on all this other awesome, maybe psychologically damning stuff, but will build your character and who you are as a comic and a person.
Yeah, I mean, I would really one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give a comic is be nice to everyone because
Oh yeah.
you know
Yeah.
someone in your group will make it, and making it's different to everyone. But like when I used to do the Sportsman's Lodge with Whitney Cummings, I would get to go on before her because I was higher up the food chain. Like as crazy as that sounds. And then
Right.
she had a drive like I've never seen, and she still has it. And she could hire me and has hired me. So
Oh, cool.
I think that's the advice I would dole out. Not, hey, you should do this joke this way or that way, but the social game I think is much more important than actually joke structure. Sadly, it's
Mm.
No,
in
it's part of
social media too.
yeah. I mean, it's part of this is a job. Like, I know a lot of people get into it because they're like, I want freedom. I don't want a normal job. I love telling jokes. I love thinking differently than other people and living differently than other people. But in the end, it's a job, and
Mm.
all jobs depend on, which managers like you. When I worked in tech, when they were putting together teams for different projects, if a project manager or a team lead liked you, you got to be on the cool project. And if they didn't like working with you had to go do the shit one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
so,
I think it depends though on what your goal is. Like
oh,
in terms of advice you should get. Like when I start out, I just want to be the best comic I could be. As
Mm-hmm.
dumb as that sounds, uh, but that's just I didn't care about I had, and this is at the MySpace era.
mm,
I want 20,000 followers on MySpace, but I should have probably concentrated more on that. And now it's TikTok. But it's true though. I just saw Matt Rife uh, sell out 2 shows in the main room of the Comedy Store because of his
yep.
TikTok following. And that's just the way the new era of comedy is. You look at Josh Nasser, who Amy. He couldn't get a club to return his email. Now he gets headlining work because he's got 1 million TikTok followers. What changed? Comically, what changed? Nothing. But his social media.
But there's always been, I mean, if you don't think of social media as like a monolith, now we're getting on a total tangent, but there's always been something like that, right? It's TikTok now. It was Vine for a while. There
Sure.
was Tumblr before that, MySpace before that. But then, you could argue the same thing of before that technology entered it, it was just like, oh, if you got picked to do the Tonight Show, that gave you a boot, which, for the most part was a little bit more merit based. But, let's say you got some garbage sitcom, you're not a good comedian or anything, but you happen to be a charming fella. All of a sudden, you know what I mean? Like at that, or you were the host of a travel channel show or whatever. Those are not specific examples. Just to be
Mm-hmm.
clear, I'm not like subtweeting anyone here. That's just thoughts off the top of my head. Um,
But I
but
like that.
But I would
Oh,
take
sorry.
social. Oh, no. I mean, I would take a social media class, how to build your following.
Yeah, that's what I'm more like. Because I want to ask you two guys, because you guys, you're experienced. Right now, it's hard for me to wear so many hats of trying to make clips and shit because I'm
Yeah.
just every day trying to make. I'm trying to be the funniest person I could possibly be. Right. That's my focus right now. That's all I want to do. I just want to kill and just do really well and keep on honing my shit. And me going back and listening to the clips and listening to my sets and stuff. It's like I don't have the brain or the energy or the thing to do clips, and I know I need to bring my social media following up, but I'm like, I don't feel like do you think that there's a time and place to do that? Do you think you should do that early on? Do you think there's like, like I don't care. I'm not gonna headline tomorrow, I'm not there yet.
But you might,
Yeah.
if you got all of a sudden, if you got a viral video out, whether it be
Mhm.
TikTok or Instagram Reels, I know they're popular.
Yeah. Now
You
YouTube's got
would get
shorts.
headlining. You get
Mhm.
headlining offers. That's just the way the game works. I mean,
Yeah, I hear you, but do you think there's too soon for that? Do you think you can get that that's too soon if you jump in too soon for that? Yeah.
I think now, I mean, this is just my opinion, but I think now there almost isn't. I mean, I think for 2 years you should just focus on jokes, right? Because nobody's good for 2 years, at least.
Right.
And
big time. Hey,
yeah.
Yeah.
And like that's when you need to focus so much of your brain on jokes because like that was the thing I noticed with, my open mic friends from LA when I full time was like, I'm just an adjacent, I don't do comedy, whatever. Just the difference in how our brains worked and what we observed and what we thought about. I was like, oh yeah, you really need your brain to be in this lane all the time. But I
Right.
think once you get to like, 4 or 5 years and like you're very funny and have solid bits and sets, it's not too early because now it is so disposable and ephemeral, right? It used to be like,
Mm.
don't put your clips up on YouTube too early because that's forever. But now there's 10,000 clips every day. If one's a dud or it's not as good as you wanted, it's not some kind of permanent record. And then I also, to your bigger question, I have a theory that at a certain point, uh, you do want to start again thinking about it. This is a job, and for an hour a day, 5 days a week,
yeah.
you do this thing you don't want to do that you don't like doing
Yeah.
because it will help you,
Mm.
or you find someone to help you with it. And
Right.
that's sorry. Now I've just taken over this entire
No,
conversation
no, I hear
with
you.
my
And I
with
no, I
my
appreciate it.
It's your
uh
podcast.
Yeah,
that's true.
you
It
do what the
is.
fuck you want. But that's what I
Um
wish there were classes in that. I wish there was classes in like
yeah.
when you get to your five, like me, that's just like a boomer with this shit. That's like, all right, just
Yeah.
like tell me what to do. Cause I know it's like, oh, just watch YouTube tutorials. I'm like, I don't want, I hate that. No, just tell me
Well,
what to do.
this was not also meant to be like secret content marketing for that, but I'm talking to a couple people about putting together
Good. I'll take it in
classes
a
and
freaking
workshops
heartbeat.
on that,
Yeah.
who are good at it and who have their own experiences. And then,
Right.
because I'm a fucking data nerd, for me to be able to like, and here's how you look at these numbers. And
Yes, I need that. I need all
yeah,
the nerd shit. That's what
yeah.
I need, man. If for experience like comedy class for that, I would take that shit in a heartbeat.
I
Yeah.
also
I mean, I
oh
would take it. No, I would take it depending on who was teaching it. Like,
Yeah, word.
yeah,
I mean,
same for anything.
if you look at Josh Nasser, I keep going back to him because he literally could not get anyone to give him
Yeah.
spots or feature work, and then he just consistently put out the videos that he does. Like yelling. His videos are basically rolling down his window, driving, yelling at people, and filming their reaction,
Yeah,
and it's caught on.
yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
But I also think, Amy, you said you got to wait like 2 years, and I agree with that. But I think most people aren't going to wait 2 years because I
right.
saw that a lot in the world of roast battle where
Oh
someone was
God,
good at
yeah.
roast battle and, they were a year in, maybe 2 years in, but they weren't great comics. But some of them actually got on the TV show because they were so good at calling someone old or fat or whatever. And then they got comedy gigs and they were horrible.
Mhm.
So it's a tough thing to pass up on
Yeah.
those headlining gigs
Yeah.
because you might not ever get the offer again.
Oh yeah. Oh no, yeah, obviously if you find yourself going viral at 2 years, I'm just saying if you like that, do you know what I mean? Like Josh is a goofy, silly dude. So like, for him to be doing that is not, I don't think there was like, at least at the beginning, any kind of like calculation, right? He was just kind of like, this will be fun, let me try this. Oh, people like it, let me keep doing it. that's great if you find that. But I think if you are like not of the mind to be, first of all, you should be on social media your first 2 years too, because if I can't find you, like if other comics who are producing, like if you're trying to get on,
Yeah.
bar shows and pub shows and coffee shows, like you've got to have some kind of a presence or else that's weird. But I don't think you need to focus on it if it's not what comes naturally to you, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Earl. You're more, go for it.
No, ladies first. Ladies
All right.
first.
Well, I don't know. I've got bigger bowls than a lot of dudes here, but hey.
That's why I like you.
I don't know how I was gonna say it, but I was just gonna say, like, even if you want presents, like, I think what you're saying is right. It's like you gotta, it's kind of knowing yourself and also trying shit out. Like what I realized to get on to stuff, I wasn't gonna like my social media presence. Then I'm not gonna do thirst traps and all that shit. I created a show. That's what I did. I created a show, and that just flocks. That brings the milkshake to the boys' yard, whatever the hell that song is. It brings them in because, like, when you create a class, it's like, when you create a show, it's like then you start booking comics, you start getting to know comics. Then you've carving a place out for you. And then when you get
Sure.
good enough, what I did was like I started, like, I know bookers that were comics of some spot places. I started booking them so they could see me, and I played the game that way, if you will.
Yeah.
So it's like, if it's not social media presence, you just gotta, again, it's knowing yourself and being honest, man, and taking accountability, whatever the answer is that you find out it is, that's what it's gonna be, and then digging your heels into it for a while.
But most comics aren't honest. Like,
Yeah, I know what.
No. I mean, well, and that's, you were saying
know.
this earlier, like you kind of have to be delusional to start doing this and keep with it. So there is a
100%.
level of delusion, right?
But I think we're all delusional. But
Yeah.
like I said, it kind of sounds hacky, but like in my case, my delusion's based in reality. Okay. I get consistent laughs, so I should continue. But I've seen some comics never really do well, and like I should try out for the Tonight Show. No, you shouldn't. And that's not me trying to be like the god of comedy. There's
right.
many funnier people than me, but I was going to mention a move to New York, and I think Eric Lake, he get a lot of love in LA because he was on shows that he probably wasn't ready for. So he moved to another city where he was unknown and started from scratch, and now he's a lot better than he used to be in LA. And so he was honest with himself. I mean, I can't speak for him, but he was probably like, I'm not good enough to be out here yet. I'm going to go somewhere else and get good, maybe come back. So I think a lot of people should do that.
Yeah.
Not move around the city or the country, but like,
well, I think
you have to be,
that brings
you just have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
I think kind of to your point, the bigger zoom out of you shouldn't just try to start at a club. You might not be ready, and you shouldn't rush. If you don't start off in one of the major markets like LA, New York, Chicago, now Austin, maybe you want to talk about like Boston or Denver or something like that. But if you're in a smaller market and you can and you've got enough of a scene going there, like don't jump ship too soon. Like you are a much bigger fish there, and you're, again, assuming it's enough of a scene that you can get some reps in and get real work done. You're going to be able to get yourself in a better position if you stay there an extra year or an extra 2 years before you show up in another scene where everybody is like top of their game.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you see that now with Austin a lot, where everyone thinks they're going to move there and they're going to knock on Rogan's compound door and he's going
to bless them with success.
Yeah, it's like the line up Rogan's ass is at capacity. So, like he's not going to help everyone who moves to Austin. So, and then if you bomb in front of him at the Vulcan Gas Theater or the few other clubs that are there, he's definitely not going to help you. So, you said it perfectly. Don't move to the big city, LA, New York, Austin, some Montreal, Toronto. and until you're ready, and it goes back to you got to be.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, sorry.
no, it's okay. Yeah, no, totally. I think also like shit, I'm a stoner. I had the idea in my head and then it's gone. But
Oh, dude, I've had a pad of paper this whole time, so I could write down. I was like, oh, this is the next thing I want to talk about.
yeah, you just brought up a
High
good
on energy
point.
drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but you brought up you know, of course you brought up a good point about
Moving.
Earl about moving and like all the you know what is, and also don't depend on people to bring you up. You know what I mean? I don't know. I've never been a person. I've always been very reliant on myself and of course close friends and help like that help. But like I never expect to be like you know go Joe like Joe Rogan will find me and that's what I'll do to make it. It's like that's a delusion. There's healthy delusion and non-healthy delusion. Let's put it the way like cholesterol, right? You know. So it's like so it's just like I never, you know, I never want to be like I like being maybe it's because I'm a control freak. I don't like to depend on someone to make me my career, if you will, or depending on another comic to take me on the road for me to do it. It's like, oh, I'm not getting on the road. Like recently I'm going to Boston by myself and I'm going out of pocket to stay at a plot, but it's just whatever. It's a way to get out of town and see how shit's going. And plus I like to I like to get in a car and just drive. So it's just like I kind of, you know, I don't get people that come somewhere and they're like, "Oh, I'll go find a comic that, you know, or anything." Like don't depend on an exterior thing to happen in order to make your shit happen.
And I
Yeah,
think
that's good.
another piece of advice I would give, and I don't know if this relates to the topic of comedy classes, but so many people, they admire a comic for the wrong reason. Like,
Mm.
not to talk about myself, but like when I got on TV from Roast Battle, and then I got good headlining gigs after that. I was 14 years in, so I
Wow.
was ready for those gigs. So I think a lot of younger comics were like, "Well, if Earl got headlining gigs from Roast Battle, and then they got on it a year or 2 years in, and they didn't get the same results stand up wise. So like, be careful who you look up to because you're probably not on their level.
Right.
So, what they're doing might not be possible for you at that time.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the
I
biggest
think
thing.
too,
Yeah.
I mean, I always tell people like eyes on your own paper, that's
Yes.
common advice. But
Mhm.
and I think that's part of being honest as well. Besides being honest with yourself about where you are, being able to see clearly what other people are getting and why. And that, some of it's going to be stuff you don't see because you've only been doing comedy for 5 years. You didn't know Earl 12 years ago.
Mhm.
Or
Yes.
someone, gets a writing gig on their friend's show and you're like, that fucking hack, da 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 da. But you don't know, oh, they've already written, like maybe you don't like their stand up. It's not your cup of tea, but they are competent and they've already written these pilots and they've written for this. Like there's like I do think so many people, weirdly, besides the delusion of like, oh, this one person is going to help me, or if I show up here that's going to make my life, look at what other people get and assume it is much easier.
Mhm.
Or there's things that it's so simple. And especially I think, and this will I'll wrap us up in a second with one last question of like you
Keep
can't.
going.
I feel like, Earl, you were like, I don't know if it relates to comedy classes, but in a way, I'm like, are we giving a comedy class right now? I think we might be.
But we could, like,
Yeah, you two could, man. I mean, I know I have
no,
questions for you.
but so could you. Like, we're
So,
all
Yeah.
three.
I'm only 5 in, man.
no,
I
but
got
like
a
you
ways.
have, I think that's valuable because you have more recently gone through that experience
Mhm.
that a new comic is going through
But
now,
you
where, when
could,
Earl and I were new, it was a different world.
Word.
but like, this class I would take because I have a bad piece of advice from the three of us. Like,
Mhm.
because we're all being honest with each other and
Yeah.
with hopefully all the people watching this. Hopefully, younger comics will watch this and go, "Oh, I see what they're saying." All three
Yeah.
of us. So,
Mhm.
I think so too.
I could probably teach a class on what not to do.
I mean, that in a way
That
is
is
more
good.
valuable than saying,
Yeah.
I'm going to teach you a class on what to do.
Yeah.
I made every mistake you could make. Like, Whitney Cummings every Friday night at the Sportsman's Lodge would be like, "Earl, let's go to Jerry's Deli and write." And I didn't say this to her, but I'm gonna go look for some pussy, Whitney. I'm you write your scripts. And like, that was insane looking back. Like, how much further could I be today if I just would have gone with her? And, you know, you know, there's a lot of mistakes, you know, starting at the Comedy Store, another mistake, you know, so I wish someone taught that class instead of what to do, because they probably don't know what to do anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing too. One of my favorite, I wish I could remember who said this to me, but like basically no one can teach you how to do comedy. They can only teach you how to do comedy the way they did comedy.
Right.
Yes.
But oh shit, now I didn't write it down and I lost my train of thought too.
Wait,
we're all doing really well.
Amy, are you high too?
No, I'm not. I'm having coffee and water. I just am an old lady who forgets things now. Okay, so it was about all right, so this is gonna be our wrap-up thought for our little comedy class we're having here. So we were talking about, you know, don't rely on someone else, don't think someone's going to be your savior. But then I think the flip side of that we've all touched on is you do find your people, and those are people you're going to work with and enjoy life with and get more out of it than you would otherwise. Like, I know so much of it is serendipity, and how do you ever explain like this is how we became friends? But sort of, I think there's a lot of snake oil at that level too. Like I've certainly, so I used to live right by the creek in the cave. They did tons of open mics, and the kids would come into my deli right afterwards, and they'd all be talking to each other. And I was like, oh, you guys all think this is the big man of your open mic who has all the answers, and he is wrong. Everything he's saying is wrong. How do you sort of navigate that of, you know, finding your group, finding the people with the same sort of values, and maybe, you know, doesn't have to be the same sense of humor, obviously, but people that you know you can trust and keep work, and that, you know, are like, oh, you're one of the people I'm going to know forever, versus, oh, this person's a user, or this person is trying to sell me a bill of goods or whatever, who's like kind of at the same level as you, not just when you're looking at teachers. Do we have any thoughts on that, or is that just
Well, it's funny. It's a hard one, but like as a person, I mean, you know, as only person 4.5 going 5, but like I met. It's so interesting. You will, and I was talking to Micah Fox about this because I was going through a little struggle because it was like this old group who I thought was going to be not the whole group, but a few of them. I thought we were going to be life friends and partners and shit, and I was going, you know, we're all going to bring each other up, and it hurt me a little bit when I was like, oh, it's not them. And it's kind of like it like, and Micah's like, shit, girl. She's like, you're gonna go through 7 different, like, tons of different people, man. I mean, what the hell? You think I started with the same people? I think for me, the big litmus test in my short experience in this so far has been, when I win, are they happy that I'm winning? Are they actually being like, you know, like Levi White's one of my closest, dearest friends, and he's like starting to get more into clothes. But every time I'm winning, he's like, "All right, yeah, I'm proud of you." Like, you know what I mean? We have a really good, solid relationship, and he's always like, "That's awesome," and we're asking each other questions, and he's like, you know, and we lift each other up. You know, a rising tide rises all ships, and that's the kind of vibe that I've. And then the ones that are not, you might get scooped up by a couple that are like, and if you, I don't know, I'm very much of a person that feels things intensely. So it's like I could, if I walk away feeling or like down, I'm starting to learn to pick up those cues better. Plus the Zoloft helps. But but you know, and I think that's the sign for me, like when I had my buddies around me and things, I started getting into clubs and they weren't like dicks. They were like, that's awesome. I'm happy for you, man. Because your wins are my wins. And you know, and that's really the truest way for me so far.
I mean, I think with me, I would say the group I started with, it's 22 years ago or whatever. It's been so long, I can't even put an actual year of accuracy to when I started. 85% have quit. So, and that's just the way it works. You know, you'll go through many circles of comedy friends. You know, most drop out because it's a hard gig. Like, even if you're successful, you get rejected for 90% of the gigs you go on. So, and most people aren't really built to deal with that. So they leave.
And I imagine,
so
Earl, I imagine it gets harder when you
no,
get
go
to your
ahead.
level. I'm sorry, I just want to say for you, I imagine it gets harder for you. It's like, because people don't understand this. The harder you, like, you're longer in and more, you're getting professional gigs, the harder the stamina is, because you got to hold on to it and grow even more, right?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Right?
in the voiceover world, and this has nothing to do with comedy classes, but it kind of circles back to Charlie Adler. You know, like I get rejected for 95% of the gigs I go on, and I'm
Mm.
successful in that field. Like,
Yeah.
so now I have two areas of rejection: stand up and voiceovers. So
Yeah.
so it's even harder for me.
Yeah.
But it's hard to find that circle of friends to. You're lucky, like you found one person who you go over your wins with, and they're happy for you, and you're happy for them. It's hard in comedy because
Yeah.
most people quit, like because most people are in comedy for the wrong reason, like, to make it, and
Mhm.
few of us do. You know, so the dropout rate is so high, it's hard to keep a normal group of support around you because they're probably not going to be there in 5 years like you are.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be negative,
Ooh.
but
No, I
I
know.
know. I'm like, that's so existential.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh no, no, but I hear
But
you,
it's
Earl.
true.
Yeah.
The
but
Red Rock
I
open
mean,
mic.
now I feel bad, but like we're being
No, no,
honest.
no,
No,
Like,
no.
that's
Yeah,
true.
totally. That's
listen,
true.
And that's the
it's a
other thing
shitty
too.
thing to say,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you will lose most of your comedy friends because
Yeah.
they don't have your drive, and you have to almost approach it like Patrick Bateman in American Psycho and have no friends and just straight ahead.
I think actually I'm pretty sure it's Steve Simone who said this to me, and this was great advice to that point, which is when you're in your early days and things are hard and you are just doing shit shows at a laundromat or whatever, actually enjoy that time with those people
Mhm.
because yeah, so 85% of them are gonna quit. And then the other 15% of you that keep going, the more successful you get, the less time you're going to get to spend with each other
Mhm.
because, yes, maybe. So let's say, someone gets there first and starts taking someone else on the road. Well, at some point, that person's going to become a headliner themselves,
Mhm.
and then also that's only one person. You can't take all your friends. And so there's a lot of, you have to enjoy the shitty part because it's actually the good part.
Right. No, yeah. I had, thank God I learned that from working in film and TV, being a production assistant. You get your days and then you
Oh,
become
God, yeah.
ADs. And it's like, you are PAs and you're all working together. And then when you graduate, you're all becoming second ADs. So now you're all applying for the same job,
Hmm.
because there was only one second AD and there's five PAs. So the number goes from five people now to one. So now you're all on the same level. I believe it could be the same analogy in comedy where it's like
Yeah, that's
you're all up
perfect,
getting this
actually.
level, and it's like you all came up from the scene and now it's like, oh, we can only hire one writer, a major writer. You know what I mean? So it's like it
Yeah.
comes more of a competition because it's a smaller pool of things. So it gets harder. So I'm lucky with starting this late. I enjoyed. I mean, you always enjoy the process. If you're not enjoying the process, then what the fuck are you doing, dude?
Yeah, no, I miss those days of
I
struggle in a
bet.
weird way. Like, I would love to go to Jerry's Deli with Whitney right now, but she probably doesn't have 10 minutes to spare, like
Mm,
Can't
in
imagine.
between
Yeah.
movies and TVs and roast and all that. So, it's a weird feeling to be more successful now, but miss the struggle days every now and then. I don't miss them that much, but
I
yeah.
mean, fair. I'm not trying to whatever, but there are benefits to it.
Yeah, I bet. I don't have a comma on my checking account, so I bet I won't miss that part of it when I do finally get to year two
Yeah.
levels. But yeah, no, I feel you
Oh,
and
I
I hear
don't have
you.
a comma in my bank account right now either,
Yeah,
so
either.
I just got the little
I've
notification
got
saying I'm
several.
in.
So anyway,
All
girls,
right. All right.
Good for you, Earl. Man, now,
Kennedy.
man. I'll be there. I'll be there soon, kid. Man, I'll be there soon.
oh, you will though. Like,
Yeah.
see, you're in comedy for the right reasons because you're good at it
Oh,
and you
thank you, man.
enjoy it. You're
Yeah, I
not in
do.
it to well, I want to be the next Jim Carrey making $20 million a film, which I'm sure that wouldn't suck either. But like,
Yeah.
so many people get into comedy, at least in LA, for the money. And
It's like, oh,
there
there ain't
is,
no money, baby.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what
I
dumb
mean,
shits? You're doing the wrong thing. Going to OnlyFans. What the hell are you doing?
yeah, I mean, I would say my first 10 years into comedy, I probably put in $10,000 to do it. Like,
Right. Okay.
the driving to San Diego for free,
Right.
driving. I drove to Medford, Oregon once, a 12-hour drive
Wow.
to feature. I made $100 and probably spent 300 in gas
Right.
and all that. So if you're in it for the money, you'll quit in 6 months in LA.
Yeah.
I mean, even out here too, because well, I definitely lost money on shows I ran in LA, but I didn't care because I had a grown-up job. But like when I moved out here and I started running shows, I mean, I easily was in the whole $100 every show I ran at first, whether it was, from not making enough tickets to pay out the comics or spending money advertising or like whatever. And that was part of the deal. That's okay. And then you get to that point where it does hopefully start making money, or you just stop doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, if to try and, I know we got to wrap it up, but like in the vein of classes, and if they're good, if Jay Davis taught a class on how to run a show, I would take that class.
Yeah,
because he's been a successful LA showrunner for 20 years.
Wow.
And he always has the hot room. Like right now, he has a hot room.
Yeah.
And that's 20 years. And I don't know what he does, but if he said, hey, there's the Jay Davis How to Run a Successful Comedy Show in LA class, I would take it if that's what I wanted to do, because he's the best at it by far.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
That's all.
Well, now that we're we'll end on a positive note of yay, Jay Davis. But yeah, no. So thank you both very much for sharing your thoughts on comedy classes, and then basically giving a comedy class so people can skip out on wasting their money. For the ones that are waste, we've obviously discussed some are not.